Hi. Now, last week, of course, we explored some of the myths and found out that quite a few people are still fairly ignorant as far as AIDS is concerned. Tonight, towards the end of AIDS Awareness Week, we ask people who have HIV how they cope with it and how they live with it. OK, now, Richard is HIV. How long have you known you've been HIV, Richard?
For about 5.5 years now.
5.5 years. Can you, I know it's difficult, but can you, for those people who've never really thought about it or given it any deep consideration at all, can you actually take me through the day that you found out that you were HIV?
Well, the day was obviously the most devastating day of my life. I was lying in hospital for a totally different operation to do with my teeth, and I was given a test, and it was firstly negative, and then it came back positive while I was still in hospital, having my wisdom teeth taken out.
Did you have any inkling?
Not at all.
Had you got a partner or a friend or somebody who was HIV?
No, I was not in one of those high-risk groups, so to speak, of promiscuity or drug use, or however what context people would like to put into it.
So when the doctors came up to you, did they approach you in a fairly restrained way? Did they come up and say, "Listen, I'm sorry, old chap, that you're HIV"? What did they do?
Well, I mean, everybody, when whatever illness they've got, are put in a position whereby they have to tell the patient to what degree the problem is. And in this circumstance, the problem basically wasn't being told, it was what to do after I was told.
How did you feel when they told you? I mean, I know it's a pretty obvious question, but...
I'm a very different person to quite a few of the other people probably in the audience, because my attitude to life is live it as long as you can, and for whatever reasons, and I'm happy to die young.
You're happy to die young?
I am.
How long have you been HIV? I asked you before.
5.5 years.
5.5 years. Do you worry about contracting, as they say, full-blown AIDS? Do you give it any thought? Do you go and have regular...
I don't worry about it. I do have regular tests, but I certainly won't go through the process which I've seen many people do, which is having to disintegrate, go into situations whereby they are basically bedbound and have no other reason to live but by medication and medication.
Over the past 5 years, Richard, have you met other people in the same situation to yourself that have since died?
I have been working for the last 2 years for people working and living with AIDS, refurbishing rooms, putting televisions in them, mattresses, and generally looking after people who are actually dying of the disease now. Not to say the people who have got the big trust funds that put money into looking after, trying to give a cure, but these people are dying in hospitals day as we speak. They are not going to get any benefit in 6 months, 7 months' time.
So you're not kidding yourself that you're going to have a cure, that you're going to be cured?
No,
and that
not so.
You're not kidding yourself?
I don't believe there will be a cure found within the next 5 years of my life, while I'm alive.
OK, now I see behind you, can we get the microphone over here, Mr... I see behind you that we have Chris, who was here last week. Chris is a consultant, but he's brought his boss along, just to be on the safe side, Caroline, as well. Is there anything, do you think that Richard, maybe he should be doing something to... you're not taking any drugs or anything, are you, as I understand?
I've refused every type of drug from AZT along the lines of every single AIDS-related drug.
How do your doctors feel about that?
I let them prescribe it to me. I take it home. I then get over the illness that I've been prescribed the drug for. I go back to the consultant in the hospital, and he'll tell me, "I know you were right. I know I was right in prescribing the drug." And then I'll turn around to him and I'll say, "Well, I haven't taken the drug in the first place."
Chris, Caroline, what do you think? Is this, I mean, Is he perhaps more sensible than most?
I think a lot of the drugs that we use may not help a lot of people. There are one or two very limited drugs which we know do prevent, say, the pneumonia of AIDS, which is pneumocystis carinii pneumonia. And if you don't take something to prevent you from getting that, then you may get it over and over again, and each time you get it, it weakens the immune system. As far as I'm concerned, we have a lot of patients who don't take drugs, don't want to take drugs. I'd like them to tell me. It's very important that they tell me, because we lose trust.
Are you using them as guinea pigs? I mean, to a certain extent, you must be.
No. If we do a clinical trial, then they know about it, and you could argue that that is using somebody as a guinea pig. But otherwise, we're doing what we think, to our best knowledge, is the best thing for them. And I always discuss at great length with the individual whether they want to take the drug, because as he says, if you give somebody a drug that they don't want to take, then they won't take it, and it's just a waste of money. They'll flush it down the pan, and it'll ruin your relationship.
Okay, now Andy Revel is over here. Andy, you're from the Wellcome Foundation, and there has been quite a lot of talk about AZT. A lot of people have said that they think that taking AZT has made them actually worse.
The difficulty is, if someone takes AZT, they are an individual, and different individuals react differently to different drugs. Some people react badly to AZT. I know people who've been on it for 5 years and swear by it. At the end of the day, you have to look at clinical trials and look at what happens to a group of people taking AZT against a group of people not. And the data from, we have about 130 clinical trials that I know of on our database. The data from those show that whilst AZT isn't a cure, it's not a wonderful drug, it does have some significant benefits.
So you say it's not a wonderful drug. I mean, there is some point in taking it.
Absolutely. I mean, but it's down to the individual. And I think the important thing here is that everybody makes their own choice about how they live with HIV.
Have you you've taken AZT?
I'd just like to put this point to you.
Sorry.
The medical profession and the patients themselves, some 6 years ago, 5 years ago, have a wonder drug. Everybody jumped on it, and the wonder drug was AZT. And to that degree, it was supposedly given a halt in the virus. And as a result of that huge publicity campaign, AZT became what a lot of people thought was the drug that was going to help them to keep living.
Sure.
Now, when I was asked by my doctor, and when I answered the question, I said, what would happen to me in 6 years' time if I could have taken that amount of toxicity into my body? And the doctors themselves, which I presume have been briefed by the Wellcome Foundation at that time, said we wouldn't know that question for another 5 years. And so I said to them, well, come back to me in 5 years' time and to ask me whether I want to take that drug. And as a result, the Concord trial proved this year that, for the first time, because you had to have the time limit of 5 years, the Concord trial proved that many people on AZT and had been taking AZT for that length of period had their immune system was weakened.
So do you think the Wellcome Foundation should have told people perhaps a little more about it before giving it to them?
There were 2 points there. The first is that people anticipated AZT was some sort of miracle breakthrough. And I think we're in the latter part of the 20th century. People expect breakthroughs if there's a new disease. AZT was never going to be a miracle cure. The Wellcome Foundation have never said it's a miracle cure. The press deal often in black and white, and there are plenty of headlines saying miracle breakthrough. They certainly didn't come from us. And I think the important thing is that at any particular time in a disease as serious as this, the people living with it have accurate information, and we certainly don't know all the answers. And it's down to people such as yourself to decide not to take it, and I utterly respect that decision. But
in the instance of what, as you said, it's not black and white, and we never said that you should take. Isn't it in the interests of the company, well, the drugs company, Wellcome being the drugs company, to challenge the media then and say, from my experience and my reading in the media, I've seen and heard so much of the propaganda which are promoting AZT, But I have never seen a person from Wellcome write an article in a newspaper to say AZT can harm you as much as it can hurt. It can help you.
Let me just go back to. Sorry about this. Let me just go back to the doctor behind. Yes, Chris.
If I could just make a couple of points. I mean, AZT has been an enormously controversial drug, and one reason for that is that
it's an expensive drug.
It's expensive, no, but HIV and AIDS are obviously desperate diseases, and AZT was the first drug that showed any activity at all against the virus, and that showed some possible physical correlation in patients taking it. So I think because of that, it's become the centre of a struggle sort of for really control over people's lives who are ill, and also pharmaceutical companies.
But is it giving people a false sense of security?
Well, I think in the early days, in the mid-80s particularly, a lot of activists were pushing the drug companies, saying that they were being too slow. Now they're saying they're being too quick. It's a mixture of... I think everyone's actually to blame, in a sense, for the early problems with AZT and the overhype of it. I think now the Concord trial showed that for people with no symptoms taking the drug over a period of 3 years, that there was no obvious benefit over that time. Having said that, my own personal feeling is that while my feelings about AZT have changed over the last few years, there are still some very real beneficial situations where it can be used if used in a sensible way.
So you're not frightened about prescribing it, but you prescribe it differently now to the way that you prescribed it 5 years ago?
Yes.
I think we have to thank the people who went on the Concord trial for showing that, because if everybody had refused to go on it, then we wouldn't have the answers that we have now. And in fact, the hype was amazing. Yeah. We had lots of patients pushing us to give them the drug without there being any trials, and I think we'd be in a very different situation. So I think those people who took part in the trial, one can thank them very much.
OK, being fairly mercenary as I am, I mean, do Wellcome pay people for going on these trials or not?
No.
Because, I mean, I often see advertisements for drug companies saying, come along and test our drug and we'll pay you for it. I just wondered.
No, they don't.
No? No. It's just a thought. I put it in your mind, that's all, Andy.
I'd just like to make one point about the Concord trial. There have been 5 or 6 controlled trials of using AZT in people who are not yet sick. They are symptomless HIV-positive people. The Concord trial has not demonstrated an advantage of using the drug earlier rather than later. It doesn't mean the drug isn't having any effects. And I think amidst the hype that surrounded Concord, there's a lot of misunderstanding. And the other controlled trials have all shown a time-limited, admittedly, but a benefit from early intervention.
I wonder if this is... I'll go over to Mavis, who's involved in the middle. Just to, whoops, drop the microphone. Let me go over here. Who's involved in day-to-day care, looking after people with HIV. Mavis, is there still this stigmatism attached to people that they are likely to be contagious from whatever reason?
Unfortunately, there is, James, and it's quite amazing that you hear the stories that clients tell us about that, and I'm sure some of them will tell you later. Some years ago, we started a group at St Thomas's for heterosexual men because they were coming to us and asking if there was anywhere they could go. Because unlike the gay culture, they can't talk to each other. It's very isolating for them.
Can we make this point, actually, Mavis, and I think we should make it here before we go any further, that we tried to get quite a number of people to come out, and we're going to talk to some people who are heterosexual tonight, who are HIV later. But it is very, very difficult, and still there is this great feeling that there are not very many heterosexual people who have contracted HIV.
Yes, there is, and I can say from my own caseload, I've got many women like Liz here with children, and also heterosexual men, excuse me, with families. And I think one of the people we're going to talk to tonight, who's decided not to come into camera, will tell you the stories about what happened to his family. Because it was found out that he had AIDS.
But some people are actually saying it isn't a problem. That isn't right, though, is it?
Of course not. Of course it's a problem, yes. More so than people realise.
And will heterosexuals, do you think, be encouraged to come out and say, look, I am HIV, but I'm managing to live with it? Because it's something that people have to realise that they can live and they can have a life.
I don't think at the moment, the way society is, James, that that's possible for them to do that. I really don't.
No?
It's impossible.
OK. Jerry Hayes has been quiet for nearly the whole first part of this programme. Let him have a word.
But there are 8,000 8,000, the latest statistics, 8,000.
Can we hang on just a minute? You might
I might
Jerry?
up.
Oh,
Yeah,
fine,
yeah,
let's
yeah.
carry on then. Right.
8,000 heterosexuals who are HIV. Now, of course, the tabloids and some of the Sunday newspapers who are horrendously prejudiced will say it's a gay plague, and they just look at the full-blown AIDS figures. They don't look at those people who are coming through. You look at the figures every month now of all those people who are becoming seropositive, 25% are heterosexual. Now, a few years ago, that was 2%. That is very, very worrying indeed.
But still people are saying it is not something that affects us, it's only gay people or people in the rock business or on television or actors who get it.
And they are condemning thousands of young men and women, heterosexual young women, to death every time they print it in their newspaper.
Okay, hold that thought about heterosexuality and we'll come back. We're going to take a break for a couple of minutes. Before we do that, let me remind you, of course, as usual, we have to provide some revenue for the show, and we're going to have our competition, and after the serious discussion, maybe cast your minds away to the island of, hang on, where are we? Crete, okay. But before we do that, let's go to Rhodes, and a competition we had a couple of weeks ago, we offered a holiday for 2 people for a week to the island of Rhodes. The winner is Mrs. J. Cole from Tonopandi in Mid-Glamorgan, so well done to you. This week, you can win that... I was looking at myself on the television over there thinking, oh, it's what a smart man he looks. This week, you've got a holiday for 2 in Crete, and all you have to do is answer this one simple question. Greek houses are white. Right? The question is why? Why are Greek houses white? Is it A, to reflect the sun, B, to keep the heat in, or C, there just is no black paint? That's not politically correct. I really wish I hadn't said that, but is there no black paint in Greece? 0891 900 007 is the number to ring. I don't know why I'm doing this. You can ring that number until midnight on Sunday, and 2 people out there are going to win this holiday, and they're going to be on their way to Crete. Come back in a couple of minutes. Right, welcome back. Now, along the bottom of the screen there, we're going to put some helplines for anybody who feels they would like to get in touch and talk further and more deeply than you can on a television programme. You can ring any of those numbers now. Come and meet Dennis. Dennis doesn't actually wish to be identified, so you can't actually... Am I in the wrong place? Shall I move over here? Probably that's better. Dennis is over here on the stage behind me. He doesn't want to be identified for reasons that will become obvious. Dennis, how long have you been HIV?
I was diagnosed HIV positive in 1985 in prison. And,
that's 8 years now, nearly 9 years.
I had been in prison for 3 years at that stage, and I maintain that I've been HIV positive now for about 11 years.
You're heterosexual?
Yeah.
You have a family?
Yeah.
When you found out that you were HIV positive in prison, were you surprised? Did you have an inkling or not?
No, I was shocked, actually. As I say, I had been in prison for 3 years at the time when I was diagnosed, and I'm an ex-drug user. And at that time I had been doing a lot of training, exercising, and I don't think I had ever been as fit in my life when I was diagnosed. And it came as quite a shock to me. I wasn't told that I was HIV positive. I was told that I had AIDS and I would be dead within 5 years by a prison doctor. And I'm still here now, and I intend to be here probably in another 10 years.
How do your family react to this? Since your family found out, how do they react?
Well, it's been very hard for my family because as far as confidentiality goes, I've never really had any confidentiality by being diagnosed in prison. And since then, I've appeared in court on a number of occasions, and my name has been published in the paper as an AIDS victim. And my family have suffered from that. My child was being approached on the street by other children who were saying to him stuff like, oh, you have AIDS, your name's in the paper last night, he has the same name as me. And obviously that was from listening to their parents talking, the kids were hearing this. But when he was 11 years of age, he wanted to change his name because of the stigma attached to AIDS, and it was an everyday occurrence that people were saying stuff to him.
Is it getting better now? Are we actually able, as a community, as a society, to cope better or not?
Well, I don't think so, and I think that's the reason why I don't wish to go on camera, because I think there's as much stigma around now, if not more, and I wouldn't like to jeopardise my family again.
Okay, Dennis, why is it you feel you don't want to actually be seen tonight?
I think, again, it's the stigma factor. You know, people like sort of, you know, oh, I know somebody that's got it, even though you're something sort of extraordinary and it's got two heads or something. And I feel that the people that know about my case, I'm quite happy to let them know, but does everybody need to know? Do they all need to, you know, have this information given to them? I mean, I'm no different a person to, you know, what I was before. So...
Did you tell your parents? Have you told your parents?
Yes, yes.
How did they
know.
take it?
Initially, their reaction was obviously one of great concern. You know, it is a shock to the system, to them as much as it was to me when I found out. But they're very supportive. If ever I need any help in any way, then I always know they're there.
Okay. Sarah, where are you? Sarah's in the middle row. Sarah, you're HIV.
I am.
How long have you known?
I tested positive in 1987, so I've actually been positive for 6 years now, but I reckon I had the virus for 5 years before that.
What was the first thing you did when you found out?
Put my house on the market.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. I was going to be dead in a year's time. And the thought terrified me. There was no point in carrying on. I had to tell everybody because I was going to become sick and I wasn't going to be around anymore. Things have changed a lot.
Did you find that the medical advice that you were given was just very sort of...
I was actually given very little advice at all.
Really?
I was told on a weekend when the support agencies in those days closed down. So I was living for a weekend with the knowledge that...
On your own, more or less?
Yes, yeah.
Did you find that when they told you in the way that made you feel, well, they're telling me as if it's my fault and I should have known bloody well better?
No, they didn't tell me like that. It was almost just a fact, you know. You're positive. Now go out and deal with it. I did feel very alone. I felt totally alone. My world had just blown up in my face, totally. The fact that it was my birthday the next day didn't exactly help either. But
do all your, I mean, you're
my
quite
family
prepared to
now
be on
know.
television,
Yes.
and
Yeah. My sister was immediately told.
How did she take the news? I mean, it's quite often close relatives who take it in a very strange way.
She took it very well, considering that she had nowhere to go for support. It was really, more than anything, a voyage of discovery together. You know, what I've learnt, she's found out, and vice versa.
What would you say to people, and there will be some people who are watching this programme tonight, this morning, who have just discovered, maybe in the last couple of days, that they are HIV?
Don't look on it as a death sentence, rather as the beginning of a new life.
When you say the beginning of a new life, and a lot of people nodding behind you, and people who work, I know, in the caring... in fact, you're from St Thomas's behind? Or?
No, St Mary's.
St Mary's behind. St Thomas's are... Where's St Thomas's at the back? Right at the back. I see, OK. Have you changed the way you approach people now with HIV? Because there did seem, a number of years ago, a sort of feeling, well, you've only got yourselves to blame, for goodness sake.
I don't think, I hope, that I never felt that. It was always sort of, it can happen to anyone. Yeah. That, you know, it's being a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Nobody asks to get it.
Dorinda,
it's nobody's fault.
Sorry, Dorinda's directly behind. You're a ward sister, Dorinda, head of ward, in fact, senior staff nurse, is that right? Looking after people who are HIV, who've just been told, just found out. Is there a pattern to the way we behave when we find out something like this?
I don't think there is at all. I think that everybody reacts in a different way, and you can never say to somebody, how did it feel for you, and expect to hear the same thing from the next person, because you don't. Everybody reacts very, very differently, depending on their own lifestyles and depending on, you know, what support they've got around them as well.
Do you think that we heard from Jerry, we've been talking, and we're trying desperately, people are trying desperately to say, look, this is a problem that everybody in society has. It's not just, I saw the other day, I think a programme on Channel 4, I couldn't believe it, called The Plague, which I thought, I mean, I don't know whether this is very alternative or not. It just seemed bloody stupid as far as I was concerned. Do you actually think, Dorinda, there is perhaps from your experience, you can say, look, this is something that heterosexuals should be aware of, and people right across the spectrum of society?
Absolutely, absolutely. The heterosexuals, unfortunately, still think that it's something that's never going to touch them. And you hear this on every programme and in every newspaper article that you read. Heterosexuals still feel they're immune to the virus, and that it's only people that are gay, people that are IV drug users that are going to get the disease, and that's absolutely wrong, absolute nonsense.
As well, let me just check, but I don't think there is anybody in this audience, unless I'm wrong, that contracted AIDS from a heterosexual relationship. Is there? Is there one right at the... Can I ask you how? And, sorry. Yes, go on. No?
If you contract HIV... You contract HIV, not
Did
AIDS.
I say AIDS? I
Yes.
beg your pardon. Keep me... and I haven't used the word victim either as well, so I slept... Yes, thank you.
I'm heterosexual, and
yes.
I got AIDS.
But you didn't have a blood transfusion, you didn't use drugs, Can you tell me what happened? We talked to Sarah before. Can you tell me exactly what happened when you first found out? What did you do?
Well, when I found out, it was very difficult because I had to have 3 separate tests.
Yeah.
Blood tests, because they said that they couldn't answer yes or no. And I had to wait all in all, about at least 2 or 3 months for my diagnosis to actually come through as being HIV. Of course, at which time I didn't know what to do, really. But my husband and I were diagnosed at the same time. We decided to have a test together. My husband is bisexual, actually, but...
Did you go and tell... I mean, you obviously, because it was in your family, did you go and tell... Do you have children?
No.
You don't have children. Did you go and tell your immediate family, your immediate friends, or...
Not straight away.
Has there been a difference in the way people have reacted to you?
Very much so.
Yeah?
But in fact, very favourably. Which is odd.
Yeah? How does your husband feel? I know. I mean, have you managed to sort of tell people close to you as well? Have you?
The reaction from my family, which is from Belfast, is absolutely different from London and England. It's the reverse. They're all 100% behind me.
Yeah.
And no doors are closing. In fact, they're opening. And they're always, every time you ask, it's, how are you? They never even actually ask you the question of HIV AIDS, how are you doing? And you're, that's okay, have a drink.
Have you decided now, the pair of you, have you changed the way you live? Have you decided that, you know, you can see an infinite time of your life and you're going to put as much into it as you can?
Yeah, every day's infinite. Every day's brilliant.
Every day's new.
Especially the next day, because you wake up for it.
Can I come down here? Professor Tony Pinching. Professor, thanks. I know you slipped in halfway through the first part of the programme. As they say, you are the... do you know where you are for the professor? No, the professor's over there, right? I'll give you such a kick in a few moments. Sorry. Professor, you're, as they say, the man as far as HIV is concerned. You're one of the most eminent people. I'm sorry, I have a cold today. The most eminent people who actually we could have on the programme. Is there ever going to be... We've heard Richard earlier on say that he doesn't take any drugs, doesn't do anything. Even if he's prescribed them, he takes them home, gets rid of them, and he just wants to live his life, and he doesn't want to even try for a cure at the moment because he thinks it's not worth it. Do you think that we're going to continue to find more and more different things as we go through life about it?
Well, I think the first thing is to say that a cure, in a sense, is an inappropriate goal for the foreseeable future, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't look at a number of treatments and a range of treatments. I think the second thing to say is that we are all different individuals and we all have different approaches to what sort of treatment would suit us best in any disease situation, of which AIDS is one. So I think we want to have an idea that there isn't some sort of uniform treatment that applies to everybody. Everybody has to find what suits them and to find the package of treatment which may include no treatment, that suits them. And I don't think we should have the idea that there is some sort of stereotype pathway people go down. I think people have to, in a sense, own their treatment, and then that's a part of regaining control over one's life.
Can you shed some light on the story that appeared in last Sunday's Times? Apparently, the big headline there saying, HIV no link with AIDS.
I'm afraid I've long since despaired of trying to understand that particular newspaper. I'm sorry.
I think it has to do with the editor. I wouldn't worry too much about the paper.
Society has comparable credibility in my eyes.
But it is funny and we do laugh at it, but I think we just spend a couple of moments just sort of getting it out of the way, because a lot of people read that newspaper, a lot of people believe everything that they see in that particular paper.
Well, I mean, people are entitled to believe whatever they say, and I think whatever they like, and people can clearly say whatever they like in the newspapers. I think the simple thing is that you actually have to put some sort of filter on what's being put in front of you and say, well, what is the evidence for this proposal? Why is it they are putting a particular line when there are other lines around? I think people have to make informed choices, the same way as they do with treatments. Essentially, the people who seem to inform their point of view are people who have in fact turned the whole process of science on its head. The basic approach to science is to say, you put up a hypothesis and then you look at some data to see if you can either support it or falsify it. And data are supreme, hypothesis is essentially temporary. What they seem to have done is actually throw out all the data that don't fit their hypothesis. And I have to say that's about 99% of it. And there's a real problem with that.
Tony, just for the moment, hold on. Thank you very much indeed. We've got to take a break. We'll come back in a couple of moments. Final part coming up. Before we do that, the competition, remember, this week for 2 people on the island of Crete. Wouldn't you like to go now? The way the weather has been, I could go tomorrow. All you have to do is answer this one simple question. Greek houses are painted white. Why is that? And you have a choice of 3 answers. To reflect the sun, to keep the heat in, or because there is no black paint. 0891 900 007. The phone lines are open until midnight on Sunday. Welcome back. Let's go straight to Jerry, who... Jerry, tell me you came out of your hospital bed to join us tonight.
Yeah, I was hijacked.
You were hijacked? Okay.
I literally was told this evening, I was asked
to tell me your story.
Well, I was diagnosed in 85. I suffer with haemophilia, but I'm a heterosexual man, and that's the message I'm trying to get across. In January 85, my third child was born, and the medical profession took a blood test of me back in Ireland, and a few weeks later, they told me I was negative. 6 months later, after a few friends that I knew were positive, I decided to have a test. And that test came back positive. And my initial counselling, I was told I was HTLV3. And my initial counselling was, well, we don't know how, you converted, but you're positive now. Do not have any more children. If you're going to have sex now, you must use a condom. And come back when you're not feeling well. And that was it. And, to me, to go home now and tell my wife then that I'm positive, not only I'm at risk, but she's also at risk, and also our daughter. And
how did you tell her? Did you have any help? Did you have any advice?
I did. I had a drink. Actually, I hadn't got the guts to tell her, and I stopped in the pub and had 2 pints, and went home and told her. And it broke her heart because, as I said, I was negative in January 85, and all of a sudden now I'm positive. And we just had our third child. We had 2 boys, and my daughter was born, and it's just isolated because people put me into this little bracket as a haemophilia with HIV, and
so they gave you no sort of counselling, no consideration at all. Kaz Lawson, who's the head of social work unit, who's at the back over there and hidden away. Kaz, I mean, this is Paul. He's too small, this little lad with the microphone. We're going to have to get a bigger one for the next show. Right down in the bottom there, down further. That's not down, that's along, isn't it? And I was thinking we wouldn't get any humour into this programme. Kaz, sorry, how come it seems that a lot of people are left on a limb, or was this something that happened maybe 5 years ago and that now is a lot better? We've learnt a lot in the last 5 years.
I think we have learnt a lot. I think that there are more people in the field offering the services, the counselling and the support services, and more especially the the practical welfare services that people might need to help them through the early stages of dealing with the diagnosis. And certainly people are around longer and are coming for more services for a longer time than 5 years ago.
Now,
I disagree on one level with you, because as a heterosexual man, there is no services for heterosexual men where heterosexual men and women can meet. But you look at the landmark, you look at the lighthouse, you look at
That's why the group was started, so that
but
we
it
could
wasn't.
deal with...
hang on, you use the microphone there.
I'm sorry.
I'll use it over here.
The thing about it is that you're saying you have a place for heterosexual men, but it doesn't work. It works for a while, and then people move off. They get some support, and then they move off. But there needs to be other things. There needs to be activities where heterosexual men and women can meet.
But this is what we're trying to do, Jerry, and I think the reason it hasn't happened is because people are afraid to come forward. They're very frightened about who they're going to meet there. Are they going to meet people who are going to tell other people? We have to try and get the message across that this is a safe environment.
That's the important point. There is a 63% increase on heterosexual women. Now, and if that's a 63% increase, what is the increase on heterosexual men?
That's right.
And why are those men not coming forward out of duty to the rest of the public who are being infected as a result of not having HIV tests?
I tell you why. Because when you go to some of these centres, I've been actually, tried to be picked up on a number of occasions at some of these HIV centres. They're predominantly gay, and I'm sorry to say it, but they are.
So let's talk about, we spent a lot of this discussion talking about the situation now, and I think it's pretty obvious that it's pretty bad. But I would really like to hear what we can all do and what people at home watching the programme can actually do to make things change. And maybe, Jerry, you should say, what do we need to do now, both in London, but also outside London, because there's nothing outside London.
I think this is
So let's come down to Dave.
Yeah,
let's come down to Dave. What do you think? Dave is, of course...
broad range of services out
Yeah, hang on, you stay over there. I'll come over here. Just a minute. You've got enough problem with your poll. Sorry, you're from the
I'm from the Terence Higgins
Right.
Trust, and
now what we're saying down here, just let me recap, that there's too much gay orientation in this disease at the moment, and it looks like the heterosexuals don't realise that they are the people who are most at risk now.
that isn't true. The testimony that we're hearing from heterosexual people this evening has been very moving. But I think it's important to say that the largest affected community in this country are gay and bisexual men.
It's about a virus. It's not about community. It's about a virus. Everybody, that's what I'm saying is that
that's right.
This virus has been around for far back as 1978. Well, even far back as 1958. And the thing about it is that this is 1993 today. We're moving into 94. And it needs to open up that it can affect everybody.
So you're saying you'd like it to become asexual, really? And get rid of
my sexuality is not taken into it.
Yeah.
And this is what I need to... Also, the other angle is missing as well.
Hang on,
no
okay,
support
right,
for
hold that
partners.
thought over here. Let me just go... But you're saying heterosexuals are getting a little panic-stricken about something that really is not as serious for them as it is for the gay community.
I think it's an illness which is serious for everybody. I think what I find disturbing about discussions, the whole tenor of some of the discussion this evening, the framework in which it is taking place is kind of implicitly saying that this is only a serious disease, this is only something that really matters to the wider public when it starts to affect heterosexual people.
No, that's not what we're saying, and I hope that's not how it's coming across. Let me just lady at the top here for a moment.
I didn't say that was what was being said.
Sorry.
I said that was implicitly underlying the tenor of the discussion.
Right, okay, got your point, yes.
I think the reason why a lot of people, it's come across as being a gay disease, and a lot of services and awareness for the general public has come about because in the West it did at first hit gay people, and the gay community are a strong community, and they have worked together to create an awareness, and they've got services going, and that's why a lot of people, I think, when they're coming along to a lot of services which are already established, feel like the gentleman down at the front, intimidated by it. And the thing is that what is actually needed is more funding is needed and awareness is needed so that heterosexuals can move on. But that's why people still feel at first that it's It's that gay
something
thing.
for Jerry Hayes to keep his mind, and I know he's there sitting and thinking about it. Let me talk to Liz down the front. Liz is heterosexual. She's HIV. She was going to come and talk to us tonight in silhouette, but she decided when she got here she wouldn't. She'd come out and she'd appear in front of everybody.
I've been HIV positive for 7.5 years, and I practically live in fear for my daughter's future, for the well-being of my parents, who would be put under stress and strain, and there is no backup for most of the services that we're going. You know, like, I mean, I really think that I think we've got to all turn around and look at our fellow neighbours as friends and forget about politics, you know, whatever, and just turn around to basics now. Say good morning to your fellow neighbour and wish them well.
So where do you think the backup, apart from your neighbours, is falling down then?
It's just, it's like a constant fear that, you know, like you think that you literally have to live a double life. You've got to carry on a facade that you're totally together.
Yeah.
But you're terrified when you go to your bed. You think, God, you know, this is happening, that's happening. You know, you've only got your own self at the end of the night. But you got to lie in your bed and think, good God Almighty, like, I need help here. What am I doing?
You still reckon that you're not getting enough help from people at the moment?
I've never been promiscuous or involved in anything particularly that I should feel guilty about at this stage in my life.
But you feel because of this, the disease that you have,
Yes,
is that you are made to feel guilty because of it.
Yeah, I mean, 7.5 years ago I felt unwell at work and I was getting really tired and I thought I better go to the hospital and have a test. I was told via St. Thomas's, don't get me wrong, St. Thomas's have been more support to me than most services, you know. They've really been my backup. But like, I was just told, oh, you're HIV positive. I mean, I'm going home to work to my daughter. I'm sitting on a train thinking, good God.
Have you talked to your daughter about it? Does she know you?
My daughter is more or less aware because she can read, she can write, she's not stupid. My child is my backup to me, and I do not want her to grow up as an individual to think that for something that happened to me should be a burden on her shoulder for the rest of her life. It's like a life sentence they give you.
St. Thomas's are sitting up at the back, aren't you? I believe. Let me. Can you manage this one? Good. It's a bit. You're not managing it anywhere near there, are you? We've heard that there isn't enough care, there isn't enough backup for people. I mean, obviously, when you have something and you're looking at your own immortality, you feel like this. Do you think there's any more that you could be doing, or that people could be doing in your position?
A lot of people that have discussed
tonight. Can you shout out a little bit, because he's a bit...
Yeah. Some of the stories that we've heard tonight have been from people who were diagnosed 5-6 years ago, which is a great thing because it's showing us how people go on living with HIV. I think we have learned from their experiences how we can make things better for people and give them more support, especially around the time that they're getting a diagnosis and prior to actually even having a test for HIV, to prepare them for what may lay ahead of them.
OK, Nick, let me just go down here to Nick.
I'm a recent diagnosis.
Can I ask how recent?
I was diagnosed in March of this year.
So so it's
That's 8
very
months.
fresh in
Yes.
your mind.
That's right. Yes.
Do you want to go briefly through what happened when you were first told?
Well,
panic and.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Let me come around this side. Sorry, I'm going to block the cameraman. Yeah.
Every kind of emotion you can think of. It started at Christmas of last year. I had a sore throat.
So this is quite a poignant time we're coming up to for you.
Yes, that's right, yes. And I went to my GP to get the sore throat cleared up. It didn't seem anything important. And my GP noticed something else, which is an indication of HIV, possible indication of HIV infection. And she strongly suggested that I go and have a test. I had a test before, in about 86, I think, when I was negative. I went to St Thomas's Hospital, so I was advised that that was a very good one for counselling, and received a lot of very good counselling. But the whole trauma about this, for me personally, and maybe for other people, everyone has a different attitude to all this, is that it's how you view life. And for me, the excitement and beauty of life is not knowing what's going to happen to you in life. And to be told to have your life planned out for you, you're going to die in a certain time, possibly, is horrific.
How long do they give you?
How long did they give me to live?
Yeah, how long did they say, listen, you want to, you know...
Oh, no, well, they didn't say that,
didn't.
Which is why I'm listening to all the people here who were diagnosed many years ago. My situation, I suppose, is slightly different because things, I think, have got better, or I've certainly found things better. Perhaps I'm just lucky. I've come across some excellent people in the forefront of medical care and also the social needs that people may have. A very good friend of mine died about 4 years ago when there was no machinery in place at all, compared with what there is now. When I was first diagnosed, suddenly all these hands came out to offer help, which was very, very good, but it doesn't take away the fear and terror that you potentially feel every day.
We were talking, I think it was Sarah before, who said that she put her house on the market when she found out. Did you do anything like this? It's drastic or not?
No, I do remember when I did eventually decide to have the test, as I say, in March. That was about 2 months after I was first advised to have a test. And when I got the news, I remember walking outside from St Thomas's Hospital, and it was a beautiful day. And Big Ben had just been renovated, and it looked marvellous. There are an awful lot of things to live for.
It's okay. When you'd actually got through that particular process, and we were talking before the programme, and so I know I can say how you feel.
Sure.
That none of us know how long we have to live in this life.
No.
You told me a rather funny story that you could probably...
yes, the incredible thing is that just say I had gone to the hospital and had my test and then came for the result. Just say I was negative. How wonderful. I may have run out of that hospital, saw that blue sky again, saw how wonderful Parliament is now, it's been renovated, and run into the road and got run over by a bus. How wonderfully ironic. And so it's... The whole thing is crazy, and I don't really know why I'm getting upset, because you think you get your head around it, and then one day you can't. I'm sure it never gets any better.
I think there's something that we can all take away with us from listening to you tonight, Nick, is that we actually should perhaps make more of our lives. Perhaps if we realise that life was very short, not only for people who are HIV, and who knows in the future how many of us will be HIV or not, yes. But for those people who realise that life is not as uneventful as they thought, and they should make the most of what they have. Thank you all very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Join us next week. Thank you.